Okay, so as you may notice, not only do I have my vampire shirt on, I have two things on our display table today. The book and the movie. I'm actually fond of both. I've read the book about 5 times, and I've seen the movie genuinely a minimum of 365 times. I've genuinely lost count of how many times I've seen this movie. So I'm quite fond of Interview the Vampire. This adaptation, in my opinion, was one of the best book adaptations that I've seen. Yeah, there's things in it I wish that they had altered and changed and whatever, but regardless, still am really quite fond of this, and I'm really fond of that. Now, the rumor mill has been going for quite some time that there is, in fact, a remake of this movie coming. Oh my gosh. So I have to kind of get on my knees and beg, please don't let it be shit. Because I don't want remakes and reboots and things like that. Anything connected to franchises that I love, I genuinely want them to be good. I don't go into them expecting them to be good, but there have been some that I've enjoyed, so hopefully. But here's the thing. This remake would actually have an interesting dilemma, because it has two things to pick from. It could go more towards the movie, or it could go towards more the book. I think it actually has to live up to both the expectations of both, because many people have seen this. Not everybody's read that. So it has to toe the line between being a good remake, but also being a good adaptative work as well. It also has to be different enough from this movie to justify it existing. So, I've listed 3 things from the book that were not included in here that I think would actually help with this. In my opinion. Things that I would genuinely like to see, even if I don't know how plausible they would be, unless they extended the running time, or divided the movie into 2, or better yet, made a mini-series out of the entire series. That would be good. Okay, so number 1. More of Louis' mortal life. One of the biggest factors of Louis' characterization in any book he is in is that he is essentially the most human of all the vampires. He actually has the most heart and the most perception and things like that. His mortal life does shape who he is. He takes examples from it and he becomes both separate and for humanity. He's apart from them, but simultaneously respects and reveres them as life in and of itself. It gives him perspective that he never had as a mortal man. As a mortal man, he was a slaver, and he was all these kinds of things. When he became a vampire, he became way more aware that humanity is actually pretty equal. And he strives his best not to kill any human beings. More on that is, in general with his human life, he had a sister, a brother, and a mother. It would be cool to actually see if they could, in fact, incorporate them into a visual medium. That'd be great. His mother accuses him of murdering his brother. I think that would be a really interesting thing to incorporate. But anyway, number 2. If you're a big fan of the Vampire Chronicles, you know how important Lestat is. This introductory book is Louis' one and only book in the franchise, and the majority of the books in the main continuity of the series are written by Lestat, and from Lestat's perspective, he is the main character. There are many side quests and things like that, and tie-in novels, but Lestat is essentially the main character. And one of the biggest motivations for Lestat, the biggest thing that shapes him, is his father. And he makes his appearance in Interview the Vampire alongside Lestat. In fact, Lestat's father was one of the biggest motivators for Lestat picking Louis in the first place, because he needed a place of wealth and comfort to house his sickly, blind father. Lestat was a vampire, and he still had a father. I think that's pretty interesting. I think that would be really cool to incorporate the constant struggle between Louis and Lestat over the father. There's a great fucking scene in the book where Louis has to go against his code of killing and kill Lestat's father for Lestat. And Lestat is characterized predominantly as a bastard in this book. Like, you get senses that he actually has emotions and opinions and love and things like that. You get that, but you also get the sense that he's a very controlling, manipulative asshole. So a lot of Lestat and Louis' relationship is based on walking around on eggshells and emotional strife and abuse, kind of, be it physical or emotional. And one of the biggest things that they get into a conflict over is Lestat's father. So I think that it would be really interesting to see Lestat's father finally on the big screen. We've seen him in Lestat the musical, but we never saw him in the big screen, so that would be really, really cool. And number 3, speaking of Lestat and Louis' turmoiling, relationship, more Louis and Lestat fistfights. In the movie, they paint Louis as way more passive than he is. Now, granted, even by his own admission, Louis is passive. He is a fairly passive player in a lot of goings-ons, sometimes only realizing things too late before he can actually stop them. So fair enough, yes, he's pacifist, but he wasn't such a pacifist that he didn't actually go up against Lestat, get into his face, and have fistfights with the man. There was this one time where Louis and him got into a fistfight right after Louis bit Claudia. They're running along the rooftops, and Louis is running back to his hotel that they're staying at. He's running along the rooftops. Lestat is right behind him, mocking him, yelling at him, jeering him, just egging him on and stuff like that. And Louis is just trying to get away from him. He's just running blindly back to their home, and he slams the window in Lestat's face, and Lestat just slams right against it. It is so fucking funny. And then right when Lestat finally gets into the house, they get into a fist fight. There's several fist fights in this book. There's also several times where Louis stands up to Lestat. It shows that he's not completely passive. It shows that, yes, he is passive in a lot of respects, but he's not completely roll over and die. So I think that would actually be really, really cool to show in the story. But yeah, that's basically it. It kind of also, side note, I know this isn't vampire or Halloween themed, but side note, I'm still really pissed off in the second Harry Potter movie that they didn't include the fist fight Arthur Weasley and Lucius Malfoy got into. And my dad kind of said, okay, it wouldn't have fit the tone of the movie that they were going for. My dad justified the change, and I said, yes, I do respect why it wasn't in there. But I still would have really liked to have seen the fist fight. The fist fight, I remember, getting so excited when I read that. But yes, fist fights in the, new book, movie. Okay, number 4. Food, plural. I need food, plural, for number 4.